All right. What's up, guys? Good morning. How's everyone going? Hey, Pablo. How you doing? All right, just finishing up the setup here. All right. And we are live and ready to start. Alrighty, so what I thought we could do today, I had a few ideas since we already finished the Casawari project. Actually, let me see if I can bring it up because it came out all right. All right, I think I lost my my browser. I don't know what it is. Anyway, I'll show you later. But yeah, so we finished with that project in the past stream. It took about 3 streams to get to that point. So the first one was the blocking and establishing the main forms. The second stream about that was the detailing, and the third one, I think we did the projection, retopology, projection, high frequency details, and a little bit of polypaint, if I'm not mistaken. So all of those are already online, so you can go ahead and catch up with those if you want. Hey Vec, how's it going? Hello, I don't know how to pronounce your name, to be honest, but Привет, как дела? I guess. I don't know how to pronounce your Russian name. I don't know if it's Russian, sorry. It's in a Russian alphabet. Boa noite. Alrighty, so today, since we finished the Casawari project, I thought we could start working on something that I haven't done much in the streams. A little bit of anatomy, not like super like incredibly accurate like you might find other artists do, but actually something that we can use to build up a library of assets. So if you want to follow along, if you want to, if you're watching this afterwards and you can follow along, it's more of like a tutorial on how to build assets so that you can use them somewhere else. So the reason I said this is because I don't see a lot of people using VDMs, and VDMs is such an amazing tool that I think is one of the most useful tools in ZBrush that doesn't have a lot of not a lot of people use it, or I don't see a lot of people using VDMs for a specific purpose. So we're going to be creating some VDMs. I'm going to show you some interesting techniques, some cool stuff to create maybe the different parts of the head. So we can do the nose, the mouth, the ears, maybe the eye sockets and that sort of thing. And then, in a very simple mesh, you can create a whole range of like a wide variety of faces, examples of different faces with different proportions and so on and so forth. So when I said anatomy, I mean we're gonna concentrate on like specific parts of the anatomy, but not not like a full face or anything like that. So what I have here is just a sphere that I'm gonna turn into a polymesh 3D, and I'm gonna convert that into a Q grid. All right, so the Q grid here on the initialize palette is just going to give me this very simple plane. I'm gonna turn on polyframe. It only has a subdivision of 4. And let's go ahead and I'm just gonna show you what the VDMs, like how they work, and then we create a proper one. So I'm gonna turn off the smooth subdivider, and I'm gonna divide this a few times so that I have about 4,000, 6,000, let's go for 66,000 polygons. If I turn this on, off, and on again, we have enough resolution here to, let's go with the damp standard brush, for example, to create something and detail something in this plane. Now the VDM is just going to grab whatever we do in this case, right? But it's also going to have information in the 3 axes. So the difference between VDMs and alphas, in case you don't know, basically alphas will grab, where's my Epic pen? Yes, sorry, I forgot. There was something that I needed to mention before we get started. Thanks for reminding me, Khalil. yeah, I'll get back to this. But Khalil is asking where can you find the extra mile course. So the extra mile course is something that I just opened. So look at the screen. Forgot to turn that on. So that one, yeah, the extra mile enrollment is open now. It is a course that I go through the entire pipeline. Obviously, it's heavily based on ZBrush stuff, but it goes through other steps and other more in-depth software or use of software to produce an illustration or a concept inside all those software. But again, it's starting with ZBrush, of course. So Khalil is referring to that. It's called the Extra Mile. It's a course that is self-paced and it's a lifetime access. So once you're in, you're in. We have a community, private community of artists where I am very active, so I give feedback on that as well. It comes with a bunch of bonuses. One of the most exciting ones is the one that I'm offering for this release, for the first opening, and it's a course that that is not permanently open. I only open it a few times a year, just so that I can keep up with the new students and help them in their journey. So to answer the question, have it here. All right. So if you go to the ZBrush guides, it should be already here. So you just click on, is the main screen for the moment. So you can just click on join the Extra Mile family, and then you will be taken to this page, which is it has all the information that you need to know. If you have any questions, you can just message me, and you'll find everything that you need here. So you have some testimonials from the students, what they're saying about the course, how the course has helped them. This one is basically roughly what you'll get with the course. Here are the fundamentals, sorry, the modules of the course. So there's 8 core modules with covering fundamentals, sculpting, intro to rendering, texturing, UV maps, and creating maps, advanced texturing, advanced rendering, and compositing, which is really cool. And this is what the course is, right? It's a step-by-step system to turn your ZBrush sculpture into a polished illustration or a concept for concept or character artists. Say you just go here, you can click on join us today, or this let's do it here, and yeah, and just join. But again, you can, if you want to have more details or know more about each module, you can just click on this accordion things, and it tells you more about what we're focusing on each module. If you want to see some of the current students' work, you can click on check some of the students' work, and here it is. So this is you can go through all of these just to see what the students are doing with in the Extra Mile course, and this is just to show you a really cool, like a snapshot of the type of things that we share on the private community. So we post things online, and everyone just jump in it and start like giving critiques and feedback, and it's actually really cool because it's a very safe place to actually give constructive criticism rather than just saying, oh, it's cool. Or no, I don't like it. It's actually, people actually share links, and the students are really active. Basically, the students took over. I'm just there to provide additional, support and all that. But everyone is like super helpful. Other than that, it comes with these bonuses. So again, the private community, an extra module that is all about how to live with as an artist. So I go through certain things that I think are very important, and sometimes sometimes courses or tutorials, they don't really talk about that. It's more about the how do you balance life work balance, how do you balance life and work, and how do you organize yourself, how do you organize projects so that you can meet deadlines. It's more like an admin things, but I think it's really important. You also get a few additional tools, and this one right here is the one that I wanted to chat about very quickly before we get into the serious stuff today, which is a live workshop, and that's something that I've been wanting to do for a while. And it's kind of like I would say not necessarily a copy of something that I already did, but it's the same kind of like the same format, as in it is a single workshop or a single day, and it's something that I did in 2018 when I presented at the ZBrush Summit. And it's I did a workshop as well, so I'm gonna take kind of like the same format and apply it online. So it's gonna be a live workshop for an entire day where I want to walk you through the entire pipeline and create something from start to finish, and that's obviously only available for this session, or like for this opening of the course, because once it happens, it happens. So we can record it, but it's not going to be a live thing anymore. Other than that, yeah, everything is going to be there. You can just go to the ZBrush guides, click on this button, and learn more about it. So I'm not gonna go into too much details there, but like I said, if you have any questions about the course, feel free to ask them. If we have time at the end, I'll show you a very brief, like less than a minute video showing you some of the kind of like the process and some of the work from the students. Hey Francisco, Khalil, so it's not for beginners. It's not for beginners, as in you need to know a little bit of ZBrush. Again, everything is in there, but as long as you know a little bit of, as long as you know how to navigate ZBrush, how to feel comfortable in ZBrush in terms of the UI navigation, everything is explained in a very systematic way. So you will, like, you don't have to be an absolute beginner, but it will help if you already know a little bit of ZBrush. The other software that I touched on, like Substance Painter, Keyshot, Marmoset, everything is taught from a very beginner's point of view, but it's easy to follow. So you don't have to be an absolute beginner. I would expect, or I would assume that you know certain things in ZBrush and how to navigate most of the things that are like basic, but the rest is, you know, is fine. Is there a way to rename subtools automatically? Yeah, I haven't done it for a while. Hey, side effects. So to rename, you can just go to the plugin, C plugin, and there is a subtool master. Haven't used that for a while. I lost it. Where is it? Subtool master, this one. So you can, I think you can rename things from here. Like I said, I haven't used it for a while, but let's click on Subtool Master, Export Mirror. Nope, so it's not in here. But you can create a macro that allows you to rename things. It's just, unless you want to rename things by like numbers, like 01, 02, 03, and so on, probably is not the best idea to do it automatically, I think. Anyway, so going back to the idea of the VDM versus the alpha, it's gonna very briefly show you. So an alpha, if you look at it from, let's say, from this camera angle, and you look, sorry, if you look at from the side view, this one that I have here, so it's gonna be a plane, and of course you have some indentations here. An alpha will extract the information in the height, so just in this axis. So this point here will be black in the alpha, and this one will be white. Right, so whatever is closer to the camera will be white, whatever is further away is black, and if that's a really good thing, because you can just use anything based on a single alpha. But with VDMs, what happens is that you can actually push things along the sides, for example. So if this was the surface, you can push things like that, right? Let me show you what I mean. You can take a move brush, push that in, and then move it like that, right? So if you were to take this as an alpha, you only have the information in one axis. But with the VDMs, what you can do is actually, well, what the VDMs does is it takes the information in all the axes, because it's ultimately a vector displacement. That's what VDM stands for, I think. Vector displacement map, or mesh, vector displacement mesh. So you have the information in the height, but you also have information in the rest of the axis as well. So when you drag that in, you have all that information already part of the mesh that you're dragging. So it's incredibly useful. I don't see a lot of people using it, and it's incredibly powerful. So I wanted to touch on that. So me undo all of that. So that covers kind of like what I wanted to show you in terms of what the VDMs do. Now, if I go ahead and let's use the standard brush and do something like this, and then with the damp standard brush, we push things like so, and let's turn on polyframe. You'll see that all of this mesh is being distorted, right? And that's an important concept to get right. So you have this these loops that are getting distorted, obviously because we're adding volume and distorting the volume. The important thing to maintain or to keep in mind is that when you're creating VDMs, the borders here of this plane need to be you have to leave them untouched. So you basically cannot change this in any way, otherwise it won't work. So if you have something accidentally done like that, it's gonna be a problem. However, there are a few tools in ZBrush that allow you to come back to the plane that you have. So if you accidentally have something like this, you can hold Control and mask the areas that you already sort of like detailed or whatever, the mesh that you're creating, right? So you're masking that, and then you go to the Deformation palette, and there is these. Actually, there are a few sliders. This is the Relax one, Relax Plane Grid, and Morph to Grid. So if I take Morph to Grid all the way to 1 or 100, ZBrush is going to take everything and it's going to go back to a grid, to what I had originally. So now with this slider, everything is going back to normal. So we have straight edges, which is what we need. But because we mask this area, we have all that information. So those are a couple of important steps to sort of keep in mind. I'll show you when we get to the actual creation of the assets. But if I don't mask anything and I use Morph to Grid, we'll basically go back to 0. Okay. So there you have it. That's the idea. Let's actually Morph to Grid so that we can start with a fresh plane. And I'll show you a couple of techniques in a second. Let's see. Take a sip of water. Side effects. I did not figure out how to save and keep alphas made with the extractor brushes. So to save alphas, you can go to the alpha palette, select whatever alpha you need to save, make sure that it's the selected alpha, and go to export, and you can export it as an image. And that's about it. If you want to save the actual settings of the brush, you can save the brush from the brush palette, save as, and it will save that. That's how you do it. How do I fix duplicate names subtools inside ZBrush? Yeah, so you use the subtool master, do visible check, then correct duplicate subtools names. Yep, with subtool master, or just renaming them if you want to do it manually with this button here in the subtool sub palette. All right. Hey Alan. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and start doing maybe the nose. So for that, I just want to put this plane rotated so that it's facing me. Well, actually, it's already facing me. I was just looking for a weird angle. All right. So something that I like to do, and this is just has to do with the workflow of creating VDMs, is to squish everything to the middle so that I have more resolution in the center. So if I enable this, you'll see the resolution is consistent all across. So I have the same, oops, that's not what I want. So I have the same resolution here in the corners as I have in the center. But because when creating the VDMs and the mesh, all of this area is kind of like useless because it's close, very close to the edge, then it doesn't really make sense to have so much geometry in here. So what I like to do is kind of like pinch everything towards the center. So as I pinch all of the geometry towards the center, we're gonna have a much more dense and concentrated set of polygons in the middle, and that is gonna give you more resolution to play around with the shapes and pull them apart and all that. Another important thing about the VDMs is that you cannot change the topology. So basically, that's why I subdivided this plane. You shouldn't be, you cannot remesh or use Dynamesh or ZRemesh or any of those tools, because that's gonna change the topology ultimately, and then obviously the displacement, the vector displacement, wouldn't know where the vertices are, and they're not going to be the same. So you need to keep the same geometry. So that's what that trick is about. The other thing is, again, I don't like to mess around with the borders, so I'm gonna go ahead and hold Control, we can drag. I'm just gonna mask a little bit of these borders here, like so, and I'm going to invert that mask, and I'm gonna hold Control, and click on the mask a few times, inverted, mask again a few times, inverted, click on the mask again a few times holding control. That is just to blur that mask. All right, so let's invert that mask, and I'm going to use the pinch brush with a large brush, something like that, and I'm just going to pinch this a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect, and you don't have to have a lot. The other tool that is really good for this is the notch brush, something that I use for posing, but this one allows you to, it's kind of like a move brush, but it does it very, very subtly along the surface. So it doesn't, well, right now I have perspective on, but if you have, perspective is off, So it allows you to do this type of things, move this, basically nudging the geometry. And I know this doesn't look great, as in the topology doesn't look great, but it's kind of like essential so that you can have more details in the areas that matter. So that's kind of like my workflow to deal with VDMs, to make sure that I have enough geometry towards the center. And if I rotate to the side, you'll see that I'm starting to actually add some of this a bit of volume in the positive axis. So I can go ahead and use the Gizmo 3D. Let's bring in the Gizmo, and I can just flatten this on the Z axis again. And now this is completely flat, but I have a little bit more geometry. Can also smooth this a bit, but the geometry is kind of like pinched together, concentrated here in the center. Okay, all right, and we still have that mask, those masks protecting the edges. Let's see. Francisco, I have a doubt about 3D. How do you keep your projects? I mean, backups in hard drives, or use the online cloud, use Google Drive, but I have to update the storage. Expensive. Saludos desde Venezuela. Hola, hola Freddy. Increíble este nuevo ZBrush 2020. Puede hacerse mejor. So yeah, to answer your question, I have a RAID system. So let me talk about that in just a second while I'm already sculpting, which is something that you guys know how to do. So I'm gonna sculpt. I'm gonna start with the nose. So what I want to do is select my, my move brush. I'm gonna clear my current mask, and I'm gonna also make sure I have symmetry enabled, and I'm gonna mask the area where I wanna sort of push the nose. Okay, so this is going to be the nose, just a basic triangle. All right, and now I can use my gizmo. I'm going to push this maybe about there, and I'm going to rotate those polygons as well. And the thing with the VDMs is that it's going to be an isolated piece. So of course later you have to work on the nose bridge, and you know how it connects with the upper part of the skull and that sort of thing. But we'll get to that hopefully. All right. So now that I do that, if I enable polyframe, you see all of these polygons are stretched. So what I'll do is I'm going to go with a smooth brush and tone them back down. We can actually use the smooth stronger to smooth this out. All right. So if let me just do this a little bit more so it's more obvious. Now these polygons are a little bit better, a little bit more less distorted. Let's put it that way. All right. Now with the move brush, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a bit more of shape before I remove the mask and tweak the rest of the nose. So I'm gonna build the nostrils a bit. I wanna clear the mask. I'm gonna smooth this out. And let's go ahead and work on the on the nose here. It's gonna be a pretty generic nose, to be honest. Nothing too fancy. And this is just the move brush and a bit of a smooth as well. So far, this thing that I'm doing, you can potentially do it with just an alpha, since I'm not pushing things in too much. But as soon as I do, for example, the nostrils, I'll just push this in, then from this angle you wouldn't be able to get this this information. So here you can start to see that I'm already, you know, stretching the polygons quite a bit. So then is when, at this point, is where you can increase the resolution a little bit, or start relaxing things. But this is the reason why I use VDMs, and I mean not the stretching of the polygons, just to generate this type of shapes. And for the stretching of the polygons, that's why I pinched everything at the beginning, and I usually do it a little bit more thorough than what I show you. Now the thing with noses is that they're almost as unique as, you know, they're very unique basically. So I reckon there's just some basic shapes that you can recognize as you know, a common traits on noses, but for the most part they're incredibly personalized. Or every person has a unique nose, almost like a fingerprint, I think. So I'm gonna try to make something very generic. And so far, as you can see, I've only used the move brush and the smooth brush. So very simple way to manipulate these meshes. Of course, you can use any other brush. So let's go ahead and make sure that I don't have anything masked. And I'm gonna go ahead and divide this one more time. And I'm gonna divide it with the smooth modifier off. Sorry, with the smooth modifier on. So what that is going to do is actually take these corners on the plane, and it's going to smooth them out a tiny bit. Hopefully you saw that. It's very tiny. And now I have 263,000. I'm gonna do it one more time. So now we have 1,000,000 polygons in this plane. So that is going to give us more chance to, you know, smooth all these areas and play around a bit more with the sculpting brushes. Now before I move forward, what I'll do after having this block out of the nose is to hold control and protect everything that I've done in terms of details. Maybe a little bit more like that, right? And once I protected this, I'm gonna blur it a little bit more. I'm gonna go to the morph to grid. So that is going to help you make sure that all the edges are clean and it's going to work. So morph to grid, and you saw that it just moved a little bit. All right, clear the mask, check my polyframe, and I'm probably gonna smooth this area here a bit. Okay, so now I know for sure that my edges are fine, right? I also have the nose that is looking good in terms of the blocking, but now I have 1,000,000 polygon that I can use, you know, the clay builder brush. Oops, I'm gonna reset all my brushes. I don't know why the clay builder brush is behaving like that. All right, and this one is kind of like a Dynamesh in a way, right? So we can use that to really refine the face. So I'm gonna go to the damp standard brush, and I'll check the chat in a second because I can see some activity there. With the damp standard brush, what I'll do is try to refine this a little bit more, at least the shape of just the nostrils and all that. And I'm going to start to establishing some planes so that it's easier to sculpt later on. So these are kind of like markings that I do. They're not necessarily details. And I have some reference as well on the other computer, just some generic faces. So I'm just trying to establish the lines where the nose bridge sort of breaks. But because we have already quite a bit of topology, it's very easy to sort of establish these marks, and then we can go and move forward with the brushes. So I'm going to use the trim dynamic to push in some areas, some of the planes, some of the, at least, yeah, some of the plane areas of the nose that I want to keep. Basically trying to maintain some of the edges of these markings, and all of this is gonna be refined, don't worry. I'm also gonna use the standard brush here just to refine, standard brush, sorry, to refine these borders here with the nostrils. And one of the things that I think is different and is slightly more complicated if you're used to blocking in the shapes and be super happy with the blocking before you move into refinement and details with the VDMs, that is the fact that you kind of have to, you don't have to, but it's better to just work with a large amount of polygons from the beginning, so that you know how much are you distorting the polygons. So I know that here inside the nostrils this is pretty distorted, but this doesn't matter because I have plenty of topology. So it's kind of like, yeah, you sort of have to get used to that idea that once you establish the main shapes, you're gonna have a lot of topology, and then you have to polish everything, not in the same way that you probably are used to as creating primary shapes and secondary and tertiary and all that. We already trying to establishing the entire look of this nose just by sculpting as you would in a very high Dynamesh mesh. Hopefully that makes sense. I think I confused myself. So basically what I'm saying is that when you're creating Dynamesh objects, or sorry, VDM objects, I tend to work with a high mesh, with a high resolution mesh. Whereas if I'm sculpting other stuff that, in the workflow that they don't have to do anything with VDMs, I usually focus on have the primary shapes and the secondary shapes all blocked in perfectly fine, or happy with those before I move into this stage. But with VDMs, I kind of like just use this as a sculpting tool with very high resolution meshes. So it just allows me to work on both the details as well as the primary shapes from the beginning. So I know it might be slightly different from what I've been preaching in all my ZBrush live sessions, that it's important to block in the main shapes first. Hopefully that makes sense. Now that I'm sculpting, I'm kind of like zoning out. So sometimes I watch back the recordings and I'm like, what did I just say? I don't know. I don't understand. I'm gonna try to flatten this bottom part a little bit more. And refine this as well. Let's see how are we with time. It's all right. I'm just going to blend this a little bit more in here, not too much, because the blending of the nose with the rest of the features of the face, that is something that would happen after you insert the VDMs. Alright, so now that I have this, again, you probably want to spend a little bit more time here, but I want to cover a few different pieces of the face in this stream. I'm going to hold the Shift key And remember, I have the smooth strong. I'm just going to smooth this out to get rid of that that effect of the clay builder brush. Oops, that was too much here. Okay, and of course this needs a bit more polishing. So what I do now is I'll take my edge polish, and that sort of helps me rework on those planes of the nose a bit more. Here at the bottom as well, and also the smooth brush again. Another thing you can do, of course, is go down in subdivision levels and smooth out some of this transition here. You'll have to do it on every subdivision level thereafter. Okay. Another thing you can use is the edge polish. Sorry, the normal polish brush. That one is really good to get rid of any sort of like bumpiness, bumpy areas, and also the clay brush to just fill in the normal clay brush, normal clay brush, rather than the clay builder brush. That is the one that I'm using right now, just to add some volume. Alright, so if you take the polish brush, normal polish, that is going to help you refine the shapes while maintaining a nice polished surface. Hopefully everything that I'm doing here is making sense. I'm going to check the chat in just a second. Okay, I'm going to go back to the move brush and just tweak the shape of it. A bit of a smooth brush. Maybe let's do the changes actually in a in a lower resolution. It's a bit easier. And again, I'm trying to keep it very simple and generic. Like I said, noses are very specific, so I tend to spend a lot of time playing around with the shapes when I'm working on the nose. But I think I'm happy roughly with this. Probably want to push this in a bit more. Use the edge polish. Sorry, that's not the edge polish. Refine the planes again a bit more. All right. So yeah, roughly speaking, this is a nose. Again, you can spend as much time as you need to making sure that this looks better. And I would definitely spend a bit more time in this. But again, I wanna show you a few more things. Hopefully do the mouth and maybe an ear as well. We have time, which I think we do. Now that I explained how to deal with these VDMs, it's gonna be much easier to work on the other ones. Okay, so let me check the chat and we'll convert this into the first VDM. I know you can do it later, but at this stage, can you use the density painting with zero measure, the part where you used to do the pinch? No, because you cannot change the topology. So basically, you have to start with a clean mesh. Hopefully that answers the question. So you cannot to do VDMs. You can totally do the way that you are suggesting. I think it's just that with zero mesh, sorry, with VDMs, you cannot alter the topology, so you cannot use remesher at all, because that will remesh the position of the vertex. Can you sculpt lips, or will you in the stream? Yeah, I'm gonna try to do a couple of those. So to sculpt in high res VDM or lower one, and then subdivided letter. Yeah, you can basically if you follow what I just did, it's kind of like a bit of the two. So you establish the main forms in level 4 or 5, and then keep adding subdivisions, and then just sculpt. It's just that tweaking the actual main shapes and the shapes of the nose in a high resolution is very complicated, or as in it will change things and make it very blobby. That's why it's better to do it in a low subdivision. But as you can see, this is the low subdivision of this mesh, right? And as I move forward in subdivisions, it starts to shape up. All right, so at this level and with this mesh like so, I'm gonna go ahead and create my first VDM, or the first object in the VDM. So I'm gonna go to the standard brush. I'm gonna click on the brush thumbnail, and I'm gonna clone it. Okay, so I think you missed that. So if you go to brush and you click on clone in here, turn off the chat for a second. If you clone in here, that will duplicate the brush, and actually is going to give you exactly the same brush. It's going to be a clone of the brush, exactly the same settings. So the standard brush is a pretty good one to create VDMs. You can also use the chisel brush as well. This brush is here, but the standard brush is pretty okay. So I'm going to turn off the chat so that you can see, or actually let me turn it on. I'm going to push it to the right hand side, right? And I'm going to go ahead and click on this from mesh button. So that is going to create the first VDM, and you'll see it in here. So now when I click and drag, let's do it from without symmetry, click and drag. Well, it is doing it, but again it has the settings from the standard brush. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to make sure I have scene intensity to 100, so that we get 100% of the nose, or the height of this nose based on the VDM. And also I'm going to change the stroke from dots to drag rect. So I can click and drag now, and here is our nose. So you can make a few noses, right? And you'll see that we have that information here at the bottom, right? Right now it's not giving me exactly the same shape. That is also because of the focal shift. So I'm going to push this back a bit, and now it's much better. Okay, now it's closer to this. So those just a very small couple of fixes to the brush. I'm going to repeat it. So I move the focal shift back a little bit so that there is no fade or fall off in the brush. I set the scene intensity to 100 and change the stroke to drag rect. All right, so now we have our first VDM. I'm gonna do we can actually save this so that we don't lose it. So I'm gonna go ahead and save as, and I'm gonna call it VDM face. Okay. All right, if you want to keep the name or rename this to nose, you'll have to do it before you create the VDM. Forgot to mention that. So I'm gonna leave it like that, but if you want, you can just rename this as nose, and then when you create the VDM, it's gonna keep that name of the subtool in here. All right, so now we have that. Let's go back to the move brush, and let's go ahead and work on the lips, for example. So you can leave this one as it is. Yeah, I'm gonna create another tool just so that we can keep track of what we're doing. So another plane 3D. I'm gonna go to make polymesh 3D, go to the initialize tab, Q grid. So now it's a pretty simple mesh. Turn off this smooth subdivider. So I'm just going a little bit faster here. 1,000, 4,000, 6,000, 66,000. Okay, so this is exactly what I did before. Again, same thing. I'm gonna mask this out. blur the mask, invert, blur, blur, blur. All right, bring in the pinch brush, very large brush size. I'm gonna pinch this to the center just so we have more resolution. That's about it. Smooth all that, and let's go ahead and bring in the gizmo so we can flatten it back up. All right, and just in case, invert that masking, go to the morph to grid, and now we have a perfect, grid that we can work on. All right, let's go ahead and establish the main shapes of the mouth. For this, I'm gonna bring in the move brush. Actually, let's go ahead and use the standard brush first, just to with symmetry to establish the main shapes. So I'm gonna go for something like that. This is something, let me show you. For the mouth, generally speaking, when I do this type of things, I just think about the shape of the mouth, or the top lip and the bottom lip, as an M, as an M and a U. So the M is here, and then the U is here, and of course then you start refining a little bit better. But if you start with these letters M and U, and then you merge them together like this, you can start refining the shape of it. And create a mouth. But those two letters, the shape of those two letters really help to establish the main shapes. So again, an M and a U. Now that I have that, I'm gonna actually smooth all of this a little bit more. I'm gonna use the move brush and without the Aki curve, and I'm gonna start pushing things forward so that we can actually create some volume for the mouth. Otherwise, it's just a flat set of polygons. I'm gonna go ahead and also mask everything but the borders. So pressing Alt to invert and mask them. Blur them out a little bit, so that when I move things, like I'm doing now with a large brush, I make sure I don't affect the borders. And this mouth is going to be look a little bit like a dog mouth, because again, we don't have any information around, and that's something that you do after when you merge everything together. All right, I'm gonna use the damp standard brush, and damp standard brush allows me to refine the shape of the mouth a little bit, or the markings, like so. And then I can go ahead and press the Alt key to invert that, and for the bottom lip, again, I'm gonna do a pretty generic mouth. Once you drag in your VDM, you will be able to very quickly change all this. Right, something like that. I'm gonna bring in the clay builder brush, and start adding some volumes. And also refine this shape. This one is a pretty distinctive feature of the mouth, and this area. If you were to sort of like split the mouth into a few areas, let me just do it here. I would say like that. Actually, you can think about it. Let me see. If you have this book, Anatomy for Sculptures, it has a pretty awesome way to understand the structure of the mouth. But basically, you can have a tiered shape or a teardrop shape like this, another one here, and a sphere for this area, right? So if you think about this in terms of volumes, that's pretty much what you can achieve in the mouth. So that's what I'm trying to do, just with the clay builder brush, so that we can generate volumes a little bit faster, obviously. and the bottom lip is generally speaking a little bit more meaty than the other ones. So all of this is just sculpting, not adding details, just trying to refine the volumes. I'm gonna use the standard brush to try to build this a bit faster, and also refine the volumes at the top. So you see, it's very loose the way that I build this, and of course the move brush to refine these shapes a bit. Inflate brush as well, add more meat to those lips. Take the move brush again, push. Whoops, we undo that with the AccuCurve so that I have a more pointy shape. Can push this in as well. So I'm just refining kind of like the blocking, and we still add 66,000 polygons. So we will be able to manipulate this a little bit better in just a second. And remember what I said, this is going to be kind of like a dog dog mouth. All the placement of the proper shapes and the refinement of the volumes will be done once you start merging things together and blending the VDMs in the actual face. So you could start doing kind of like an indication of the chin, but I'm gonna keep it simple again. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up now. I'm working a little bit faster just so that I can get to show you other stuff. I'm gonna bring in the damp standard brush just to refine this a bit. And I tend to get lost in this, sculpting process is very relaxing. That's why I really like to practice anatomy, because once you have your reference up and you start sculpting, you have your blocking done, you can keep refining things until the end. Takes a long time. All right, let me check the chat. Would you use VDMs to create mouth bags and eye sockets? Yep, I'm gonna show you a trick for that as well. Hey 3D Art, how you doing? Hey Johnny, how's it going? Thank you very much, glad you like the content. Hey Brecky, how's it going? Late to the party. We're doing VDMs, so I'm just building a library of assets. So Brecky, I'm assuming that Brecky is Brecky Thor, right? One of my students at the extra mile. So pretty much what we do in the extra mile and in the course for other brushes, but this is just building a library of VDMs. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring in my trim dynamic, and I'm gonna start polishing this a bit just to establish some of the planes. So this is kind of like a quick polishing stage that I do. All right, and then we can probably clear the mask now. I'm gonna divide this one more time, maybe not that much, one more time, and then use the smooth brush to clean the volumes a bit more. And then use the polish brush to clean up all this blobbiness that was generated with the other brushes and the subdivision. So polish brush is an incredibly useful brush to just do a pass of polishing. Okay, so that's looking all right. Of course, this needs more definition, definitely, but we can do that in just a second. I'm going to push this in a bit more with the edge polish. It's important to have a look at the mouth from different angles. So, for example, this area needs to be pushed forward a bit more. Alright, so now that I smoothed all that, we can go ahead and subdivide this one more time, and this is kind of like the final subdivision, and we can go ahead and start refining this again. So with the standard brush, again, I just want to reiterate that this should be done a little bit more thoroughly than what I've been doing, but again, I want to cover a few of these. So I would suggest, if you're following along, you you do this, but as well as opening them later on and refining them, the VDMs and the planes, so that they're actually useful. Not that this is not going to be useful, is that the only thing is that you will have to actually refine them once you insert the VDMs a little bit as well. So they're going to be useful. It's just that when you're sculpting and you add these VDMs to start the process, you'll have to definitely go ahead and sculpt them a little bit further. All right, I'm going to use the inflate brush to add more volume to this bottom lip as well as the top one, and I'm going to use the damp standard brush to refine this here. So VDMs, or this process, is really useful not only to create VDMs, but also to just practice, focus on certain things that you want to practice. You can do, you can do an entire arm sticking out from a VDM. Obviously the fingers won't have as much resolution, but you can totally do it. And it is a good way to practice anatomy. Not only you're practicing and you're focusing on a very specific part of the face or the body or whatever that is, and but also you can also, once you practice, you can build your library. So it's like a win-win. You practice on a specific area, and you're also building up a library of assets that you can reuse. All right, yeah, there's definitely, it's a fine line between trying to create the VDM for a specific area and trying to avoid the surrounding areas, and I struggle with that, because as soon as I see this, I start to think about the other forms and how they joined with each other, the mentone, the nasolabial wrinkles and all that, and the nose and everything. So it's important to try to practice this, and if you're doing VDMs, and try to ignore that while you're working, just thinking that once you insert this into the proper mesh, you can go ahead and refine those things and blend everything together. So I think I'm happy with this for now. Let's go ahead and do the same thing. I'm gonna mask in everything but the borders. Invert that mask, holding Alt, invert that mask and blur it a little bit, and then I'm going to use the relax to, or the morph to grid, clear the mask, and then I can go ahead and use my VDM, brush. Where's my VDM brush? This one here, the VDM face, and I'm going to click on the button from mesh. So that is going to add my mouth to this nose that I already have, and because that brush already has the settings that I tweak, I can go ahead and click and drag, and I have that mouth. Okay, so that's working fine. And of course, later on, you can tweak the intensity. So if you don't want the mouth to stick out that much, you can toggle the intensity a little bit, and then you have just a very fainted version of the mouth. Maybe that is too much, but a little bit, right? So now you have the mouth in there. Excellent. Let's go ahead and do the ear, and maybe we have time for, I think we're gonna have time. I'm gonna rush through this process, but we're gonna have time to do a few other things. Let's do the Q grid, turn off symmetry, not symmetry, sorry, turn off the smooth, the subdivide smooth modifier. Divide this a few times up to 66,000. Okay, and let's go ahead and for the ear. For the ear, we're not going to be able to use symmetry. So let's mask everything, invert that mask, blur it, and work on this area. So let's do the same thing that we've been doing. Use the pinch brush with a large brush size to have a little bit more resolution here towards the center. This is just a quick trick to gain more resolution. Again, you can use the notch brush as well to push more things in here. Use the smooth brush to refine this, maybe in a lower resolution, to relax all of this. Let's invert the mask and use the morph to grid. Make sure that we have all of that clear. Actually, before I do that, well, let's just leave it as it is. Clear the mask, bring in the gizmo, and push this all the way back. All right, so that's something that I did with the previous one. What I'm going to do now is duplicate. I'm going to clone this tool, and I'm going to call it plane. And I'm going to reuse that plane for later, so I don't have to do the same thing again. Just wanted to show you the process. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and mask everything but the borders. Sorry, everything. No, let's mask the borders. Invert that. Clear, smooth the mask a little bit. Invert that. Get out of this. And we have 66. So for the ear, I think the process actually would be better if we do something similar to what we did with the nose. So I'm going to clear this up, and I'm going to paint the area that I want to extrude for the ear. So again, I'm going to go for something pretty generic. And this is just masking the main shape of the ear. We can refine this a bit more like that for the earlobe. All right, invert that mask, bring in the gizmo, push this forward like so, and I'm gonna go ahead and smooth everything a bit. And what we can do actually is, with the gizmo selected, I'm gonna mask a bit more of this ear, sort of like this, right? We can click on the mask a couple of times to blur it, and with the gizmo we can inflate all of this. Push it forward, inflate it a little bit more, and then rotate. Okay, so that's gonna give us like this side of the ear. Of course, we need to work on this a little bit more. I'm gonna clear the mask, and I'm gonna start smoothing with not a lot of intensity applied to the strokes to smooth these areas. So there's a lot of stretching here of the polygons, but that's the area of the ear that you won't see anyway. This one though needs to be a bit more thoroughly blended to the face, for example. So now we have this initial shape. What I want to do now is mask this area. Actually, I think I can just get away with masking with the mask mask pen from the other side. So I'm gonna hold Control and mask this area inside, and I can just refine the masking. All right, so I basically unmask only this area that I want to push in with the move brush. So I can go ahead and from this angle, this is gonna be hard to see, but from this angle I can push things in. Like so. And there we go. All right, I think we have a relatively decent geometry to start playing with. And of course, when we subdivide this, we're going to have more geometry to play around with. So that's kind of like the base. What's happening here in the chat? Rekithor from the Extra Mile reporting. Awesome. Max Power, hey. What is happening in the Twitch chat? I have no idea. I don't know what a raid is, but I think it's like someone bringing people. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with what a raid is. I'm not a super how do you call it, experienced stream person. So I think it has to do with someone inviting people to the chat or to the stream. Not sure. So I'm just tweaking this shape from the inside. Like so. All right. So now we have these shapes. Let's go ahead and work on the actual shape of the ear. I'm going to use the damp standard brush, obviously, to mark in the areas that I want to keep. So I'm going to start with the helix and the anti-helix of the ear. So you're going to have a face here as a reference. So very quickly, that's roughly the shape of the ear. The simpler that you set up these markings and the simpler that you set the main shapes, the easier is going to be to actually tweak it later on. Right? So this is I'll show you in a second. I always remember the shape of the shapes of these certain parts of the anatomy with letters, and I'll get to that in a second. Just trying to establish the this area, the tragus. Keep forgetting the names of the ear, but yeah, this is basically what this part is. All right. So I know this looks a bit messy. Again, these are no details or sculpting. I'm just quickly marking so that I have a visual reference of what I need to do, and then I go in and sculpt. The way that I remember the shapes of the ear is just obviously an elongated O. Then you have a C. So it's O, C, and Y, and then the other bits is just random. So OCY is how I remember the ear. So O is the shape, an elongated O. Then you have the C, which is pretty much this. I'm gonna do it thicker so that you see a bit of the C. And then you have the Y. It's like a distorted Y. Right? This is the anti-helix, this is the helix, and the tragus is kind of like just this little bump here, and it connects with the rest. So I'll show you what I mean in that in just a second, but that's how I think about this. All right, let's go ahead and use the clay builder brush to play with the volumes faster. So I'm going to push in this section first, which is the area of the ear that sort of is more receded into the face, of course, or into the cranium. This part as well. So I'm just holding Alt with the clay builder brush, sort of pushing certain areas faster. All right, I think I'm gonna actually push this in quite a bit, and then we'll recreate this shape again. Just need to add some, make sure that this the helix is actually sticking out quite a bit. All right, let's recreate that Y letter that connects here with the tragus of the ear. This tragus area is where people put some piercings, where I think it really hurts. Okay, let's go ahead and refine this a bit more, all these lines with the damp standard brush. And again, I just reiterate one more time that I would advise to spend more time on this particular process of refining the shapes. I'm just sort of like speed sculpting these so that we move faster. But you know, if you want to have something a bit more useful, I would recommend to spend more time on this, on the kind of like the blocking stages. Let's go ahead and at this stage I can just go ahead and divide this a couple more times, and let's go ahead and smooth things a bit, and let's go ahead and keep working on the volumes. So I use the clay brush, the clay builder brush, sorry, and the Alt key, the modifier Alt key, to basically push things in, and then the normal effect of the brush to push things out. But that's about it. We're gonna keep it simple, not any weird custom brush at the moment. We're gonna keep things pretty simple. Let me see the chat. Can we use Dynamesh for creating VDMs? Nope, you cannot tweak or change the geometry. This is a really nice stream. Great, awesome. Glad you like it, Reki. This is so helpful. All right, thank you. Cryptic Geo. That's right, Caps, no worries. Anatomy for Sculptures book recommended for beginners and not so beginners. Yeah, it is awesome. And also, if you want a very cool way to study anatomy, I don't have the book with me here. Let me check. No, it's not here. I have it in the library. Anyway, it's the article George Bringman. George, forgot the name. George Bringman. It's called Constructive Anatomy, the book, and he does like sketches in like the different parts of the body, and it's very dynamic. And he decomposed the anatomy to certain pieces that it just visually help you to remember, you know, the main muscle systems. The main muscle group, sorry. So it's incredibly useful. All right, so I'm gonna keep going on this again, just trying to fine-tune these volumes. Once you establish the OCY shapes, the OCY letters, then it's just a matter of copying things from a reference if you have. There's another area here that I want to refine. So with this color, let's do it with this color. So you have this shape, the Y. But here you have kind of like a more rounded shape, more rounded volume. And then you have the earlobe. Yeah, it's kind of like this. This is the line that the helix sort of falls into, and then you have the tragus here, which is kind of like a triangle or trapezius, something like that. Right, if you were decomposing it into simple shapes. So let's go ahead and do that with the damp standard brush, just to again marking those areas. And again, I'm trying to do it generic, but the face or the head that I'm using here as a reference is kind of like an old man, so it's a bit easier to understand these shapes. All right, so again, just with the damp standard brush, I sort of block in those lines so that I can work on the shapes a bit better. This is the rounded shape that I was talking about. And the other sort of rounded or circular shape here for the earlobe. So this is the tragus is where I want to blend it in with the rest of the plane, which will be eventually the face. And here the insertion of this helix. Well, the helix is just this part, but you know what I mean. All right, bring in the damp standard brush, and still this one is a bit more. It's a bit loose. This sketch. I'm just rushing in through it, just to make the eye. We have about 40 minutes. That's plenty of time. So I'm gonna take the move brush with AccuCurve so that I have a pointy, effect, and I'm just gonna refine the helix again because it's a little bit thicker now, and just the general shapes of this ear. I want to actually push this out a bit more and look at it from the side. But as you can see, this is just little tweaks and refinements after you have the like the block out, and you can spend as much time as you want to in this stage. Obviously, looking at references is super important. So I would recommend to start with the most generic thing you can find, very simple shape, and then start studying something that is a bit more complex, a very unique shape, and that helps you understand how things are constructed. So I'm just smoothing here with a smooth brush. In this case, smoothing this ear is a little bit fast, or faster than the other pieces that we created, because it's more stretched than the others. Now here, if I want to emphasize the curling of this helix, I'm going to use the standard brush, and I want to press the Alt key to push in. Oops. I want to reset. Oh no, sorry. Standard brush again. Hold Alt, and I'm going to push in to exaggerate this. You can also use the inflate with the inverter effect, but I would recommend to do it with the standard brush. It's just a bit more control in this case. And of course, we can also push things out. So at this point, I'm just going to smooth everything, and with the damp standard brush, the standard brush, I'm going to refine some of these volumes. And with the clay builder brush, we can go back and tweak things here and there, just refine the transition between the shapes, the main volumes again. I do this all the time. All right. By the way, I forgot who asked about this, but basically, in regards to how to save projects and how to keep track of all the projects that you're doing, there's many ways to do it. I believe, unless you have a really fast internet connection, saving everything to the cloud might not be ideal. At least not every single time that you save a new file or save something to the cloud, it will be a bit tedious. So what I have in my case is just a RAID system. So I have two servers, two small servers, they're not too big. And what I do is with I have a software as well called SyncBack, which is free. And it's an awesome tool that I've been using for years now. So I don't want to change as well. It's one of those things that if it works, there's no need to. If it works, what is the saying? If ain't break it, no. If it's working, don't break it, or if ain't breaking, don't fix it. I think that's the saying. So I've been using for ages that specific tool, and it really works for me. So what I do is with that RAID system, an array system is just a double. It's two hard drives. The words are escaping my mind today. It's two hard drives, and one is mirror to the other. So basically, whatever I save in one hard drive is automatically mirror to the next one, or to the one the one as part of the RAID system. And so with the SyncBack software, what I do is I create an automated backup every Friday night. So I don't have to do anything, just leave the computer on, and the SyncBack software automatically is going to look for whatever is new in my files, and it's just going to generate the backup. And the RAID system is going to back up everything from one drive to the other. So in case something fails, like one of the drives, I don't know, gets burnt or whatever, the other one will have the same information. So I have enough time to go and buy a replacement drive and copy everything. So I have everything in two places. The other RAID system, or the other backup system, is I think it's called MyBook. It's from Western Digital, MyBook Cloud. So it's the same thing, the same RAID system, but it's a you can access it by Ethernet cable or whatever, or you can set it up so that it's kind of like your own cloud. So I have that in a friend's place. So in case I get robbed or whatever, my house, something happened to my apartment or my house, whatever, I still have the same backup but somewhere else. So physically the server is somewhere else. It sounds more complicated than what really is. It's just I think it's like $100 or something, or no, actually the last one that I bought was about 400 Australian, so probably 300 American dollars. So yeah, and setting up that is very simple. I have a good friend that is a guru of network, so he just helps me out with the whole setup of the thing. But once it's set up, it's just, it's automated. I don't think about backups anymore. It's all there, and I get notifications to my phone in case something happens, as in maybe the backup didn't work, or I don't know, there's no electricity or something, I couldn't do the backup, so I get notified. Anyway, so hopefully that answers the question. I'm gonna leave the ear here. I think it's just all right for a blocking of the ear. Let's go ahead and select our brush, VDM brush. And this is what I forgot to do before. I'm gonna do it now. I'm gonna rename the plane as ear, and when I go to the brush and create from mesh, now we're gonna have the ear and it has the proper name. So click and drag. Now we have an ear. Excellent. So we have an ear, we have the mouth and the nose. Let's go ahead and save this just in case, so that we don't lose all this work. So I'm gonna save as VDM face, and I'm gonna do a quick save as well. Take a sip of water. If ain't broke it, don't fix it. That's right. That's what I meant. The speed is thanks, mate. Yeah, it's I've done this a few times, so don't think that I'm some kind of like expert that can do this very fast. I mean, I do it very fast because I am used to this and I've done it a few times, so I know sort of like what I can do quickly to make it look good. If you compare it exactly with a if you put an ear side by side, although this looks like an ear, you might find things that proportionally are not correct. Just wanna say that, because again, I'm doing this really fast, but I would spend more time making sure that the shape, actually the primary shapes, work a little bit better. So although from the distance you can say, yeah, that's an ear, there are certain things that are not necessarily in the right place or proportionally in the right place. So I would probably take my move brush, for example, and correct some things in here. But you know, I just want to show you a few other things. When not at a computer, I carry around a little piece of Sculpty and Ziploc to get better with forms, like a little practice sketchbook there. That's awesome. That's a really cool way. I used to do that quite a bit when I was studying here back in the day in 2010, 2009 and 10. I used to go to classes as well, and I used to work at a little market here called the Victoria Market, and I used to do caricatures of people with, you know, with clay, like the typical guy that you see in the, like a busker doing caricatures of people. I used to do the same thing while I was studying, but with clay, and that's sort of like what gave me a little bit more of a practice with the material and understanding the form. So it's absolutely fantastic as a hobby or as another practice. Can you work with the mouse? Yes, you can, but you will struggle to create you know, certain things, just because the pressure allows you to work really fast. With the mouse, you are subject to use the intensity slider quite a bit, and I wouldn't recommend it. But if you don't have a tablet, that will have to do. But I would recommend to get a tablet. Any tablet would work. The first tablet that I had was a Genius tablet. I don't think Genius is around anymore, and it was like this big. It was about, like, you know, I don't know, $50 or $70 at a time, which was a lot. But you know, it worked. It did the job. Hey, Pablo, I need to ask about hair that is semi-realistic hair with hair curve brush, but make it look like dreads. That's a very specific question. Might not have time to answer that in this stream. If you are relying on a curve brush, you can just create the curve brush with dreads already in there. As long as it's a tileable mesh, you can create dreads. What is the depth mask do? I'm assuming you're referring to this here in my UI. That has to do with the brush. So this is something that I enable for some of my custom brushes, so they preserve some of the depth as well. So depth mask is just going to analyze the depth that you have in your current mesh, and at certain point is not going to affect anything. It's hard to explain without an actual brush that has that feature. So but if I have time at the end, I'll give you an example with some of the custom brushes. Just want to keep moving along and work on the eye socket. For the eye socket, I'm going to show you another technique. So I'm going to clone this. And for this one, let's see, what would be the best way to approach this so that... Alright, so I'm going to show you a technique to get kind of like a perfect rounded shape in place. Obviously, because if you're not going to have the eye as part of the VDM, there's no point of building something that, you know, you won't be able to put a spherical shape or an eye in there. So what you can do is append a sphere. Get out of solo mode. Let's go ahead and scale that sphere to where the eye would be. I think that's reasonable. All right, so that's kind of like the eye, the placement of the eye, or the size of the eye. And then I'm going to take this plane and make sure I already have 66,000, and I'm going to use a brush called the projection brush. So I'm going to use project, and I'm going to click and drag. I think it did it do it? Okay, no, it's not doing it because it is the C project works if the actual mesh that I'm projecting is in front of the sphere, but right now it's kind of like intersecting, so there's nothing to project. So the other brush you can use is the actual project brush, which I have a lot of brushes, so let's see if I can find it. I'm gonna filter by the letter P for project. Is it project? No, it's not project, sorry. What's the brush that I'm thinking of? It's projection brush. Pretty sure. He lost the brush. All right, let me see if I can if I can find it. Sorry about that. Move brush, morph, inflate. No, it is actually the project brush. Oh, okay, I was thinking about the matchmaker. So, sorry. Let's rewind. So the matchmaker is the one that you can just drag and project everything from the camera. The C project, I was right. This is the brush that I was talking about. But if I just press the normal, with the normal effect of the brush, it's not projecting anything because this is right in the middle. So what I'll have to do is hold the Alt key so that inverts the projection towards the camera, or towards the basically towards, this is the plane. If I press the Alt key, it's going to project towards the camera like so. Whereas if I do the normal effect, I'm just projecting the plane this way. Okay. So I'm going to hold the Alt key, press harder, like so, and let's turn off the eye, and now you'll see this plane gets projected to the same to the shape of the sphere. Okay, of course we can go ahead and refine this a little bit more, and we can smooth this out. All right, now the idea with this is to go ahead and work around that sphere, or work around this area, but we have the eye as a reference, or like that part of the eye as reference. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring in my damn standard brush, and I'm gonna try to define the shape of the eye a little bit. I'm using the same face as a reference, so the mouth and the eyes and the nose and the ears, they're all the same guy. And remember, these are just markings. I'm not detailing anything. This is just sort of to block in the shapes. So the top of the eyelid, or the top eyelid, and then here for the eyebrow, this shape. Okay, so we have the markings now. We can go ahead and start adding volume. Obviously, I'm gonna do this quite fast, just using the clay builder brush. And the reason I use this brush is because I can do these type of things, building that volume super fast. But again, it's just trying to keep that balance between all these details, all these volumes, and whatever we're going to blend with the rest of the sculpt. All right, and for the eye itself, what I'm gonna do is leave the actual eye on, right? And I'm gonna use the move brush to start placing these around the actual sphere. Just trying to add a bit more volume. This one is a little bit more complicated. Another thing that you can do actually is to take, let's say, the sphere, push it in a little bit more, and that allows you to maintain a flatter version of this eye. So I can push this back a bit more. All right, and with the clay builder brush, what I'll do is try to push in this area so that we can see more of the eye. Get it into solo mode. Again, this is super sketchy. You'll have to spend more time refining these shapes. but it should give you a good indication of the process, which is what I'm interested in showing you. All right, I'm gonna just adjust this a little bit with the move brush. So this is just move brush with AccuCurve, nothing too fancy. But at least we have some of kind of like the blockings of these shapes in place. We haven't smoothed anything on just adding volumes at the moment. Just be careful to, try to keep smoothing every now and again, because this is not a dynamesh. We cannot redynamesh and have more consistent topology. We're going to have to, relax some of the polygons as we move. That's part of the important process of this generating of these VDMs. All right, so I think I'm sort of happy with this initial state. We just need to refine things a bit more. So what I'll do is I'm going to smooth everything so we can start working on the shapes a bit better. So this process will relax the polygons a bit more, and it gives us a bit more room to play with the with the placement of the volumes in general. So I'm gonna use the move brush, try to set up the angle of the top eyelid, make sure we have enough room here for the lacrimal area. All right, and it's important to, of course, look at this from every angle, but having the sphere there, the second subtool as a reference, is super important. Otherwise, you might be creating something that looks really good for one angle, but when you put it in, or like you drag it into the face that you're using, or the base mesh, then you'll have to do a lot of tweaks to be able to fit in an eye in there. Oops. Let me just check the chat and we'll come back to the eye in a second. Hey man, can you make the subtool transparent? Yeah, you can go to transparency and ghost. So that allows you to see the transparency of that tool that is under the transform palette. You have is it in the transform palette? No, that's in the draw. Sorry, draw. I already forgot what it is. I think it's transparent is within the draw palette or transform. Solo here, transparent. In the standard UI, it would be on your right hand side. What software are you using for draw over? So I'm using the Epic Pen. Epic Pen is a free software to draw over. Only for rendering on the display properties VPR render. There's a transparency setting. No, that is just for render, like Chris is saying. But there's actually Chris Lee. But you can actually do what I just showed you with the transparency tool, and you can control the transparency under the preference tab. How transparent those subtools are. Can the position of the curve modifier resolution points just like the gizmo with the all brush, the all button? Not sure what you mean. Hey Sergi, how's it going? All right, cool. So let's go ahead and continue doing this so that we can move forward. I'm gonna smooth this one more time. Maybe let's do a couple of times so we have 1,000,000 polygons now, and we can start refining these volumes with a lot more freedom in terms of resolution. So I'm going to use the damp standard brush again. So now that we have these volumes, I'm going to go ahead and refine the markings and all that. So I'm going to extend here the corner of the eye, and I'm going to also emphasize this top eyelid. I'm going to turn off, go to solo mode so that it's easier to refine this, and push that in. Again, these are just markings. Just trying to define here the lacrimal a little bit better. Okay, and let's bring in the eye. Okay. Again, we'll refine this in just a second. This is very, very rough. And let's go ahead and sharpen the edge of these eyelids, holding the Alt key with the damp standard brush. And that allows you to see a bit better the actual thickness of the eyelids, because they're actually very thick. So I'm going to start refining the position of these volumes with the move brush, and making sure that they conform to the contour of that sphere, which is our reference for the eye. All right, I'm going to use the clay builder brush to add more of this volume here. In fact, one of the things that you could do, so let me just refine this and I'll show you in a second another really cool trick. Another trick, another option that you have here for this type of workflows. I'm going to bring in the standard brush to inflate this a tiny bit. And the standard brush with a little bit of pressure, it helps you to, without destroying the kind of like the details that you have established already, it allows you to tweak the depth of the volumes, or add more volume or remove volume, like I'm doing here. And of course, using the smooth brush. Okay, using the move brush again. I think I'm already way off in terms of the reference that I'm using, so I'm just gonna wing it. All right, so the other trick that I was gonna show you, or two things, is with the edge polish. You can go in and you can flatten this part of the eyelid, and all of these techniques that I'm showing you, you can apply them to normal sculpting, not just VDMs, obviously. In fact, the creation of VDMs is way more restricted than just sculpting with Dynamesh, because you should be able to define the main shapes first with Dynamesh, and then go up in subdivisions or a resolution. All right, how are we with time? We have about 10 minutes, so I just want to finish this one. I'll show you a trick with the mouth bag, and we probably leave the actual use of these VDMs for the next stream. What's going on? I think I'm already having issues with my tablet. Oh no, it's fine. All right. So the other trick that I was going to show you is you can use the mask lasso to mask in an area like so. Invert that mask, probably blur the mask a little bit, and use the move brush or the inflate brush. So I'm going to use, come on, inflate brush to sort of like create this overhang of where the eyebrow is. Clear that mask and use the smooth brush to obviously tone this down. So it's not perfect by any means, but again, you will be able to tweak it afterwards. I'm gonna bring in my polish brush just to clean those blobby areas a little bit with a large brush size. All right, so for this, I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the eye, obviously, and I'm gonna go ahead and select my brush that I've been using. Something weird is happening. Let me just reset. Something is weird happening with my palettes. Restore custom UI. All right, there we go. So the brush that we're using is the VDM face. Let's select the eye. Just to double check, I'm also going to make sure that the edges are relaxed. So let's go to the morph to grid, and that's fine. Perfect. Let's go ahead and go to from mesh. Actually, let's rename it eye. The last two are gonna have proper names. So from mesh, there we go. We have the eye. Great. So we have the eye, we have the ear, we have the mouth and nose. Let's go ahead and save these. Same name. What else we need to do? Okay, I'm gonna show you the mouth bag trick in the last 10 minutes that I have. I think I can go over a few minutes anyway. So with this mesh, the mouth bag is actually very simple, but it's a tricky one because we need to push things even further. So I'm going to mask maybe this area like this, inverted, blur that mask, right? And then I'm gonna bring in the pinch brush and I'm gonna pinch it. Whoops, it's way too much. I'm gonna pinch it like that. All right, and bring in the gizmo, flatten all of this, clear the mask, and then just use the smooth brush to relax this a tiny bit here in the center. All right, so for the mouth bag, what we need to create is just a simple line, no volumes on the positive side, and just push in everything else. So I'm gonna use the mask. Actually, let's do the mask pen and just hold Control and mask in a line like so, maybe less than that, so you can just refine. Actually, let me just make it easier. I'm gonna simplify the process. So with a large brush size, I think I lost my pressure. That's what was happening. So this is going to be what we're gonna create the mouth bag. So we're gonna push this in, and then we're gonna refine the borders to bring them closer together. So I'm gonna blur the mask a tiny bit more, inverted, blur a tiny bit more there, and let's go ahead and use, maybe that is, you know what, that is too much. So I'm going to grow that mask. All right, so something like that. Now let's go ahead and push this in. So this is going to be your mouth bag. And of course we can bring in a inflate brush, holding the Alt key, because now we are in the negative space. So we need to use the inverted options of the brushes. So holding the Alt key and the smooth brush just to refine this mouth bag. And we can use the move brush as well. Before actually I do that, no, let's do it like that. So can create the mouth bag the way that you want it to. All right, I'm gonna leave it like that. And then what we need to do is invert that masking, right? And also mask around this area. So I'm gonna use the mask lasso. So imagine this will be the lips. Blur that mask a little bit. And then we can also mask in this area. So basically using a combination of the mask lasso and the mask, hold on, let me undo that. The mask lasso and the mask pen, just to mask around this corner. And I'm gonna clear actually the mask here. So I'm gonna hold Control and hold the Alt key to unmask this area. So we don't need that. Blur this mask a tiny bit. And now the idea is to take this move brush without AccuCurve in this case. I'm just gonna push these closer together. When you start to get close enough, you see that you might need to switch to the move topological so that it doesn't affect, basically that you can push these things closer together. But the whole trick here for the mouth bag is to keep this line very, very flat from one side. You'll see this will make sense hopefully soon. And I'm rushing through this process, but you can spend a bit more time making sure that all the stretching and all the stretching looks a little bit better. Just smoothing this area. Okay, I know it's not perfect, but that'll do. I'm gonna clear my mask, smooth everything, and I'm gonna subdivide this a couple more times so that I can smooth a bit strongly, a bit more than that. And now I can just use my pinch brush with a large brush size, and I'm gonna pinch these things together. So this is gonna create the opening of the mouth. It's a really cool trick. All right. So again, it's not perfect. You can go ahead and use the edge polish to flatten this even more. The whole idea is to keep this plane very, very flat, or this area. All right, so now we have the VDM for the mouth bag. And let's go ahead and select the brush with the VDM face. I'm gonna call this mouth bag create from mesh. There we go. So I'm gonna show you what this does, and again we're gonna use these VDMs in the next stream. So if I take a sphere, turn it into polymesh 3D, and I can go ahead and maybe dynamesh it. So dynamesh it, I think that's enough resolution, maybe a bit more than that. Right, so we have 360 resolution dynamesh sphere. So now we can take our ear, drag that in, and we have the ear. Now these lines that you can see kind of like off the plane, that is because of the type of brush that I'm using. So I can change the focal shift and then soften that out a bit. Also you can go to brush, and I'm not sure if this is going to make a difference, but you can click on surface here, and that should do the trick. You can also modify the alpha. So if you go to modify, you can play with the mid value, The mid value should be fine for the VDMs actually, but I'm just gonna test this out. Yeah, it's totally fine. Not gonna change anything really. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave it as it is. It has to do with the focal shift. So you'll see it's a little bit softer the more that I change the focal shift. But again, it doesn't really matter at this point because I just want to create a couple of ears. Let's do a quick face on this sphere, and then we'll use this properly on the next stream. So I'm gonna use, here are my ears, then the eyes as well, and we'll have to refine this the borders a little bit. Then we have our nose. Whoops, we're gonna have to dynamesh now because it's stretching everything. You can also mask the areas that you wanna keep or don't want to affect. Again, I'll show you about I'll show you more of this process later when we do this properly, because I'm running out of time. And the mouth as well, so we want to draw the mouth in here, right? And then of course the whole point once you have this is to go ahead and refine and work on this on the transition of all these meshes, right? But you can very quickly generate a face, and that's the idea with building that library. And again, I'll explain this a little bit better in the next stream when we get to actually use the VDMs and and don't get this Mr. Potato face. We actually can create something a little bit useful. The mouth bag though is, let's say, I wouldn't use the mouth bag in this process as just adding the mouth bag in here because we have already stretched polygons. However, if you're just sculpting, you know, with Dynamesh, normal Dynamesh, and do the mouth again, so here we have the M shape and the U shape. So that's the way that I start the mouth in most of the time anyway. So now we have a mouth here, something roughly resembling a mouth, and then I can take this VDM. Nope, what did I do? Sorry, the brush. The VDM, I'm gonna select the mouth bag, turn off symmetry, click around here, and you'll see how it is going to move those polygons. Now this is using, again, we have to tweak that because there's not enough polygons to really describe that shape. So I will have to increase my Dynamesh resolution, and let's go for something like that. What I'll do is just, I'm gonna show you something else because this brush is not necessarily working the way that I was hoping it would. But it's fine. It's just fine tuning it. That's what we need to do. All right, so I'm gonna take that plane, center to the unmasked areas, and I'm gonna flatten that. So now this is completely flat. Now I'm gonna use a different brush to create this VDM. I'm gonna save this one as it is, and then we can fine tune it later. So I'm gonna use a different brush. I'm gonna use the chisel brush, this one here, that has already some VDMs. So what I'll do is I can go to the create brush, and I can either, let's actually clone this so that we don't mess with the original, and I can go ahead and delete mesh. So I'm gonna delete a couple of meshes, and I'm gonna create from mesh. So whoops, chisel from mesh. Okay, and then I'm gonna select the other one and delete it. So now we have the settings of that chisel brush, but we need to change the drag rect, select the mouth bag. That's not the mouth bag. Did I select the right one? Oh, there we go. So I don't know what happened with the first one. Delete that one. All right, so now this chisel brush has a better settings actually than the standard brush, so it's already tweaked for you. So we can go here again and hold the Alt key and push this in. Now it's still pretty flat. Let's do it in this area. with less focal shift. So if I go ahead and hide this like so, you'll see that the mouth bag is already inside. Okay, and of course you can go ahead and smooth, oops, bring back everything and smooth the rest, but you already have that mouth bag in there. So it's just a matter of using and refining these the use of these VDMs. What we can do is select the nose, and I have the chisel brush, so I'm gonna do from mesh here, from mesh, just to add the nose, the mouth to this chisel brush, the eye, and the ear is the only one that, oh no, here it is. So from mesh, all right, I'm gonna save this one, this brush, and we could probably do a quick save just so we have the originals. And then let's go and try, where's Mr. Potato? Here. We can try these brushes. So now we have the nose, so it's a little bit better than the standard brush, the settings at least. And the reason that is creating these things around, not everywhere, is because of the amount of polygons. So of course, if you have something that is very, very low polygon like this, and you draw a VDM, you don't have enough resolution to describe these shapes. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, roughly that is one of the process, or one of the workflows to generate the VDMs in ZBrush. And like I said, it's like two things that you can do at once. One is generating a library of assets, like I just showed you, and the other one is that you can practice specific parts of the anatomy. So you can focus on just the shapes of the mouth, on just on the shapes of the nose, and so on, and also creating that library. So it's super, super useful. All right, so let me just see if there is any question. Otherwise, I'm gonna wrap it up here. For those of you who were a little bit late at the beginning of the stream, I showed you that the Extra Mile course, which is an online course that I teach online, is open. So I opened the inscription, so the enrollment, for a couple of days, and it's not permanently open, so it's only for this time, just so that I can help the students that get it. So I'm gonna show you that. Actually, let me see what are the questions first. How much time did you take the last factor on the art station on your account? Not sure what you mean. What subdivision level currently on an eye? I have about 1 million polygon for each VDM that we created. The same thing for all of them. Look, yeah, look, I'm using a custom UI, and I tend to sort of show which ones I'm using in the standard UI. But this is a stream that I wanted to work a little bit faster, so I'm using just my custom UI next time. Can the position of curve modifier resolution points be moved just like the gizmo with the alt brush? I still don't know what you mean with that. Sorry, Sculpture. I don't know. Let me just try to see if this is what you mean, because I can't seem to get an idea what you are trying to do. So I'm assuming that the curve modifier, you are talking about the gizmo, the former, not the modifier. These are called the formers, I think, because there's no modifiers in ZBrush. So if you take the curve modifier, or the bend curve, is that the one that you're asking? And these points, you can just, let's go ahead and change that to the y-axis, enable these points. You don't have to press Alt or anything. You can just move them freely, if that is what you're asking. Sorry, I'm not entirely sure. Can you remesh VDMs? You can remesh them, but you won't be able to use them as VDMs. So the VDMs need to have exactly the same amount of points that you used to create it, so that ZBrush know which points have to be displaced. So that's the trick with the VDMs. You have to keep the same the same topology. But once you add them, so once you have the Mr. Potato Face in this case, once you add this, this is just a Dynamesh sphere. So once you add those, you can just go ahead and remesh this, and it will be useful. Totally. Can you remesh? Yep. So let me just show you the course so that I can wrap it up here. So if you go to the ZBrush Guides website, it's all in there. It will be the same, the first sort of like header slider that you'll find. You click on this, join the extra mile family, and then you get to this landing page. So here you have about 3 days. I have to close it in 3 days. And this course comes with 4 extra really cool bonuses. One of them is I'm actually really excited about it. So here you can see everything that you get, all of the modules that are part of the course. You can click on more details, and you have, you know, the details of every single part of the module. You can click on this area, and you'll see some of the student work. This is Felix. You know, so a few of the students that have completed some of the really awesome pieces, and as you can see, everyone has their own style, their own idea what they want to create, but following the course. That's the whole point, that we're not recreating a specific character. We're not creating something that I made up, which is this guy here. So this is the one that I use to teach you everything in the course. So everything from the sculpting side of things all the way to composition, the whole pipeline. But the focus of the course is really on understanding the workflows and the principles, and you know, more of the core ideas rather than just following a specific character. So it's very systematic, it's very step by step, but then you can create whatever you want. That's the whole point of the course. So as you can see, all of the student work is following along the course, but they're very different styles, very different techniques, different themes, like creatures, characters, you know, kaijus type of thing. This is from Chris. It's really awesome. So anyway, I'll leave it there. You can these are the I talked about this at the beginning. These are the bonuses that you get. So you get an extra bonus module that is me talking about what it takes to live as an artist in a way. So it's like more admin stuff. So how to deal with projects, how to quote, how to organize your time, how to balance work with other stuff. So all of that is covered in this one. I also interview a few really good artists and friends from the industry that you know, with very specific and hard questions. I log them into a virtual interrogation room, and I ask them questions about, hey, how do you quote? How do you ask? What is the hardest thing that you ever encounter in your career? Things like that. So all of this is covered in the extra module. The community, which is awesome. Here at the bottom you have a thing you can see. This is kind of like some of the things that we share, all of us, in that private community to ask for feedback. So screenshots of that is part of this community. Then this is the live workshop that I'm super excited about. Again, it's only available for whoever joins this time, because it's going to be a live event. We're going to do a what's the name? Yeah, like a live stream, but it's going to be a private live stream, but it's going to be one single day. So I'm gonna, from the time I wake up, we're gonna go the whole day, pretty much what I'm doing right now, but we're gonna actually take everything from a sketch all the way to the final illustration. And the idea with this is just to give you a hint of the entire pipeline, and then once you understand sort of like the principles and everything, you can dig a little bit deeper into the modules of the course that will be, you know, much more in depth. And then the other bonus is just some additional tools, like a tutorial / mini course on clothes for this creature, as well as the fiber mesh kit. And if you have more questions, just feel free to ask me. And you can also go to the bottom here, and these are like some frequently asked questions. Where can you ask questions when you join? Do you need to know ZBrush? Is it for beginners? All of these things. So you can just read some of the frequently asked questions, and that's it. You join, and I'll welcome you into the course. I'm actually, let me see if I have time. Cool. All right, no. So no questions so far. So I'm just gonna play you like a quick video just so they can see what we're doing in there, and you'll see it's a lot of serious stuff, but really cool. So I'm gonna play this in 2 seconds. So this is the course, the extra mile that I was talking about. We start from like sketching. I'll teach you some techniques in ZBrush to actually sketch in ZBrush and other software as well. But as you can see, it's just taking you from the very beginning, some really cool and interesting techniques. Everything is done step by step, explaining the core principles of the software, as well as the techniques that I'm using, and then I jump into obviously other software to teach you techniques about rendering, presentation. It's all about the presentation and how to take your work the extra mile. That's what the name of the course came from, because sometimes it's like you might have a good idea and a good indication of how everything works, but there's that extra mile, that extra thing that you might be able to do and take your work to the next level. So that's what the focus of the course is. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna leave it here. Thank you so much for joining me in this stream. Hopefully the techniques about the VDMs have been of use. And like I said, once you build your library, then the next step will be to use it. But obviously we don't have time right now to use it. We don't have enough time to actually put these VDMs into practice. So we're gonna leave it for the next stream, when I'm gonna use the VDMs and show you. We're gonna create a few variations, not of this Mr. Potato, but something a little bit more interesting, but very quickly, because now we have the library that we created today. All right. Look, I mean, yeah, enrollment is now open. Perfect. All right. All right, guys, so I'll see you later. And if you have any questions about the course as well, feel free to have a look at it. You have about 3 days to enroll. Feel free to ask me directly, send me a message in Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I'll be happy to answer those. And I'm also going to host a Q&A on Instagram tomorrow about the course. So if you have any questions, just feel free to ask. I'm there to help. See you guys. Have a good one.